some time now, and one of the things that we've picked up is in sort of the recent years, almost, people are having like all these really quick spontaneous awakenings, and a lot of them just don't know what to do, right? Like, they don't know where to go, where to find the information. They really want to take in loads of information, but a lot of stuff that's kind of out there just feels too far removed, too like disconnected in that present moment, and sometimes it feels a bit too woo-woo, and it feels like, you know, what have these people been taking? And so one of the things that we acknowledged was missing, I guess, was this idea of having all these ideas of spirituality and things that are woo-woo, and bringing them into everyday language, into everyday life, and more importantly, you know, what does it all mean, and how do you ground it into the current, you know, reality for that individual? So it's very well like hearing all these spiritual terms and everything, but they don't always resonate and make sense to people. And then so for people that are seeking information, they just get even more confused, and then they're just going down all these rabbit holes and not really being able to find the information that they want. And so that's kind of where the idea of us getting together, because we regularly get together anyway on a weekly basis, and we just have like our weekly musings and see what's been going on for each of us individually. And so this was obviously a big theme that was coming up for both of us, and we wanted to address it by putting together like a glossary of, you know, terms and what they actually mean and what they mean for individuals and how they can ground it in. Whilst we've been doing that though, what's also been happening, so we haven't actually officially started that, but what has been happening is you and I have both been having a lot of information that's been coming through in various different forms, and you were really feeling the energy, weren't you, of let's just get an energy update out there, because we're really picking up on a lot of stuff. You pick up a lot of stuff when you're out on your walks in nature, etc. And so you were really feeling called and guided to just get this done, which we should have done on Monday, but as you so correctly pointed out, I was feeling slushy or slodgy.
Yeah, you weren't feeling it, were you? The energy.
Yeah,
so feeling it.
So if I'm feeling more energized today. I did the work I needed to on Monday, so yeah, feeling much more energized today, and I think we're ready to go. I think we're ready to go, and just giving everyone a bit of an energy update on what we feel and what we're picking up on and how we're interpreting it, just to help people like navigate, right? That's all this is just to help people to navigate, take from it what you want, and if other bits don't resonate, then that's fine too. So yeah, if you want to just go through like what came up for you in the last, I can't remember, because it just feels like 5 minutes and 5 years at the same time, so I honestly can't remember, but if you want to just like go, like just talk us through what was happening for you.
Yeah, exactly. I just add to what you sort of said about the whole rabbit hole thing, and how we just go down this rabbit hole of, you know, you start trying to research one glossary of words and what it might mean, and it's like you say, quite woo-woo. So then you just fall down the rabbit hole, and that takes you down all these different directions, and it all gets so confusing. So that is sort of where the way we connect together, we kind of help each other out there, and you know, lead each other sometimes astray down the rabbit hole, and you know, we've got other things to do, and we're like, oh, this is so exciting, and then we go down this whole thing. So we've kind of been researching so many things in the spiritual kind of the glossary of words that you hear, and we've been doing that for a few years now. So you know, when people are just beginning to awaken, and it's so exciting, such an exciting time, that you can't fail to look for all these you know, words, and what does this mean, and what does that mean, and how is this happening to me? And you get all excited, but then you're like, oh, but how do I even implement this into my life? And that's where it just gets confusing, and you get to a dead end. And that is, like you say, why we wanted to come together with this whole podcast, creating the glossary of words to explain how and what they mean, and then how we can, as you say, ground it into the real world. And along with our energy updates, I mean, we've been naturally doing this for probably the last 4 or 5 months at least together without realizing it. I'll sort of say, oh, this happened today, this is the download I had, I've been in nature, this has happened, or I'm feeling this kind of energy, I think this might be, you know, I'm just feeling this, but not really taking it in as what it means for the whole collective as such. And then you're just great because you bounce off the ideas or things that come down through for me. I mean, sometimes you're feeling and getting your own downloads as well, but you also then have this astrological expertise, and you just go, oh yeah, that makes sense because this is happening and that is happening. And it's just like, wow, I love this. So this was another kind of reason for us just getting together and starting and thinking, right, maybe we can help people with this, not only with the glossary of terms, but just trying to do an energy update, what we're feeling, what's coming through, and trying to explain it a little bit and what things potentially could come up for people in the coming month, and you know, what to do, how to deal with it, or when is a good time to ignore things. And I think what we were saying with what the energy was coming up for this month was one of those where you just want to kind of ignore it, stand back, stay out of things. So I had a couple of different things. I started recently doing, like, this light language has been coming through, and for the first time with me, I don't know what it was, probably was at the beginning of end of last week or beginning of this week, but as the light language was coming through this time, actual words were flowing as well. I kind of managed to record a bit of it because the trouble is, after it comes through, sometimes I can't remember. So it's like it's there and it's gone. But I think I sent you a message, didn't I? And at the time I was told there was this huge yellow, it was definitely like a golden star, and there was going to be this kind of explosion and there would be stardust everywhere, but it was nothing to feel afraid of. In a way, I felt really held lovingly, and it was like the stardust was kind of floating, and I was told that it would reach every cell of our body. So it would, you know, would come here on planet Earth, as it were, and we would receive that into ourselves, for our body, and in a way that would mean that we would be able to rapidly process wisdom. So whether it's part of this kind of awakening that we've got at the moment, like you were saying earlier, this mass awakening that we're seeing, and so many people are awake and hungry for knowledge, when actually they may not need to grasp all that knowledge like we've done all the study of it. Maybe they won't need to, because it's going to be in every cell of their body, so they can collect it quick. Of course, you know, that's when people often say, you know, it's all within you, and the knowledge is all within you, the wisdom is within you, but sometimes it's still hard to find that wisdom within you if you don't trust it, or, you know, don't have discernment around what that is or what the messages are that you're receiving. So I think it will be, even though we can access it much faster and download it faster, you know, things like this, like we're aiming to do with a podcast, it will still help you. So then your take on it, Rav, with the whole explosion thing, you just gave a great kind of, with your astrological mind of what was happening.
I honestly can't remember what it was that I said, because it, like you said, it's almost in the moment when you're picking up on something, then I energetically connect into it in a slightly different way, and I have a slightly different lens. So it's beautiful the way that you pick up information, then I'll pick up information, then when we kind of combine it together, it's like there's this fuller picture. And sometimes when, and this is one of the key things, I think, you know, speaking into people that are kind of experiencing this awakening, you've almost kind of got this, is it just me? Did I just make that up? Did that really happen? Has that, you know, and there's almost this element of, do I trust the information that's coming through? And so when the two of us kind of are communicating and we're like going through what's going on, and we're finding these similarities and we're picking up intuitively what's going on, it's really nice to have that almost confirmation, right? Like this idea of, oh, I'm not going crazy. It's not just me. There's, you know, there's more to it. So just speaking into what you just described there, in terms of, you know, this explosion happening and these particles coming in, and, you know, basically merging with ourselves. That is the reason why we're having this big awakening, is because in 2017 in December, so during sort of the winter solstice, there was this massive shift on the Earth in terms of the magnetic field. So I don't know if people are aware of this, but you know, the sort of magnetic poles on the Earth are shifting all of the time. It's just in the last few decades it's been accelerating, and in the last few years, so since 2017, this is massively being accelerated further. And so what does that mean? What it means is that the way that the magnetic fields are working around the Earth it's almost like the defenses have dropped a little bit, right? And so what's actually happening is that the neutrinos from the sun, right? So the sun is the center of our particular galaxy, but it's one of a thousand suns, is basically able to send through all of this light that is kind of reaching the core of the Earth. And then it is, whether you want it to or not, right, this is what's creating this mass awakening. It is quite literally these neutrinos are coming in, and from the ground up, we're just being awoken, right? Like it's literally coming into the cells of our body. So when you're explaining that and you're like, oh, there's a big yellow sun, and like we've never had this conversation before. So like you and I haven't had the conversation about the neutrinos coming in and the sun and things exploding, etc. So when we're having this, you're having this vision and you're getting this information and this download, and then I'm getting the information and the downloads as well. It's like, oh, it makes perfect sense. That's exactly what's happening. I think another thing is, almost this fear of what's going on out in the universe is somehow disconnected from us, or it's something for us to fear. It's like when people look at astrology, they're almost kind of going, the planets are doing this thing and it's making me a certain kind of way. And it really isn't. There is no degree of separation. It's as within, so without, as above, so below. And so, everything that's going on out there in the universe is quite literally happening within you as well. And so if there is, an explosion happening somewhere, which there always are, so there's going to be like a supernova somewhere that's it's a star essentially that's come to the end of its life. It's going to explode, and whoosh, out goes all of the energy. So there is the chance that could actually happen, right? And so maybe you're already seeing and sort of picking up the energy of that star exploding. And when that stardust literally, like, it explodes, it will shoot out and it will have an impact on Earth. It won't be devastating, it won't change how we're living, but what will happen is that stardust will come in, and we can't help but be like upgraded at a cellular level because of this explosion, right? And so it's not going to have a detrimental impact, but it will have this impact. And if we're not aware that this is what's happening, if we're not working with the energies, it's kind of like and this is how I kind of view astrology as well. It's kind of like you've got a current, and the current is going downstream, and you've got a boat and you're trying to go upstream against the current, right? It's going to be so much harder for you to paddle upstream if you're not going with the energy. If you're just flowing with the energy and you're aware of what's going on around you, it's just being forewarned and forearmed, isn't it, really? And so that's why I really love what you came up with, was this idea of it literally changing us at a cellular level, which is quite literally what's happening. Like, from an astrological perspective, that's exactly what's happening. Another thing that is happening is we're getting so many more discoveries of like planets and planetoids and dwarf planets. And it's not that they're now being discovered. They've always existed, right? It's just that they're now in our they're coming within the Kuiper belt, right? So they're within our sphere of awareness. So once we scientifically become aware of them and we're acknowledging them, it then forms part of the human consciousness, right? It's actually, you're able to consciously connect with the energies of that particular planet. And again, so that is just so powerful. So all of these, planetoids and, dwarf planets and all these 5D planets are sort of coming into our sphere of awareness now. And again, what you just said, it's like cellularly, it's upgrading us into that next level.
Yeah, definitely. And in a sense, when you just said about being aware of the planets, it's almost the same thing right here with energy. You know, the energy's always been there, and it has been discovered, but you know, it's until it's like proven almost scientifically, it's like it's not there. You know, and you know, with the Reiki that I do, that I've been part of this scientific discovery, which is showing exactly how the Reiki is working, and that the energy is, you know, there is benefits to doing that. And because it's being shown now scientifically, it's like, oh yeah, that's real. And it's almost the same with our awakening, that, you know, we could potentially always have been awake, we're just not noticing, we're not aware of what's around us, a bit like signs, synchronicities and things like that as well. Until we kind of are awake, we see it and it comes into our consciousness and all a part of it. So yeah, it's kind of not just what's happening in the planets, it's what's happening here as well, isn't it? Awareness is like almost your first massive step, isn't it, into awakening, as it were.
Yeah, and you know what, we're calling it awakening. I genuinely think it's almost the wrong term. I feel like, as you were talking, it almost should be awareness. I feel like it should be like, oh, we're becoming more aware, rather than awakening. And I get the whole awakening thing. It's kind of like you've been kind of like snoozing and sleepwalking a little bit, and you've not been aware of the things around you, right? That's the point of it. But it is that and you're completely spot on. It is absolutely this idea of being more aware. And even when we look at things from you know, an NLP perspective, or if we're looking at like psychotherapy, anything like that, what are we doing, right? At a mind level, we're just bringing those stories, those beliefs, those limiting patterns to our conscious awareness. That's literally all we're doing, right? And so, like I said, as above, so below, it's exactly the same principle. It's just working on a completely, well, not a completely different level, but on another level. And I think, you know, you bringing in the use of energy in there as well is, again, it's just this awareness piece of, we are so much more than just our physical bodies, right? We just think that everything that is tangible around us, whether it's our bodies, whether it's things, or, you know, people, places, we just put so much onus on that and not as much on all the other levels and layers that make up us as a whole, right? And so it is the physical 100%, and that's what we're trying to do, is really ground in everything into the physical, because we are here and we are in a physical reality, so we can't ignore that. But as well as the physical, we also have a mental body, an emotional body, a spiritual body, and then the spiritual body, as you know, obviously then like splits out into so many different levels and layers as well. And so if we can kind of work on all of those levels simultaneously and bring that into our awareness, wow, I mean, God, the planet would just be so much happier, and everyone would just be so much happier as well, wouldn't they?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think that's something that we look to do, isn't it, when we work with our clients? It's that we're not just looking at even the energetic body, we're looking at the physical body, we're looking at the mind, body, spirit, all those things together, and the mental body, isn't it, bringing those you know, all those parts together really to make you whole, and in that calm space that you want to be, where you can clearly see and have more clarity for your next steps, decisions, and so on. And that's kind of what we're all about, isn't it, with our work?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, the second kind of energy update that we had, which in a sense could also be seen as maybe an explosion, but I think with what you were saying with my kind of download that I had, so basically I was out in nature doing my normal walk, bit of omen walking, just asking, I tend to ask nature, I either look for signs and receive messages auditory, or I see them visually. But on this occasion, I just kind of stopped. It was really calm. It was a beautiful sunny day. And I just asked for a message. And the next minute, the winds got up and I noticed they were coming from the east and, you know, really blowing through. And all I could think of was the poem, or not poem, or saying or song that comes into the Mary Poppins film, and it kind of says the winds from the east. I can't remember the actual rhyme, but it was just saying how, you know, well, not the energy, but you could hear the wind building. That's what I could hear, the wind building, and I could feel the energy as if it was all coming to like a climax really soon. I can't remember the exact poem, the words, but
I know the one you mean, and I can't remember it
no. It comes from the east, and it's like we've all been here before. It's almost like that repetition of cycle, but it's all, something is a coming, you know, that kind of thing. So basically it's coming, it's going to climax, you know, there's something big is coming basically, and not necessarily good either. But then it was like after the winds had got up, it just completely calmed down, and then the birds were singing and the sun was out again, and I just felt really calm. Normally it's like the calm before the storm, but it was like the calm after the storm. So it felt like, you know, something big is coming, something that's going to maybe shake everyone up a little bit, and then afterwards it's just going to relax and calm. And then you said with your astrological kind of
I honestly can't remember what I say until you just said it. Then I was like, oh yeah, I remember what I was thinking now. So with regards to what's going on astrologically, it's quite interesting. So, and I think this is kind of the sense of urgency that came through, wasn't it? You were like, oh, well, we need to let people know now.
Yes, because it'd be too late.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got quite a number of different aspects that are coming up astrologically. There's loads of things coming up throughout the whole year. So anyone from the astrology world will know that the big theme of sort of end of last year going into this year is this Saturn Uranus square, which is quite a challenging aspect that's playing out. So that's an underlying theme throughout the whole of this year. And Saturn is very much about the old and the traditional, and even the corporations, governments, people that are in authority. And Uranus represents the people. It's unique, it's quirky, it wants freedom. And so these two sort of big power players in the sky are kind of having a bit of a battle, right? And so you're seeing this all around the world. You're seeing people wanting to be free of, you know, all of these restrictions that are being placed. I'm not going to say any words that might get us tagged, but you know, there are a lot of governments and you know, people that are in authority that are placing limitations on the masses right at the moment, and there's a lot of these power plays that we're seeing all over the world. And so that is a theme that is going to keep playing out, and we will see that on the world stage. On a individual level, you know, what this is inviting us to do is there's always a shadow and a light side to everything, right? So no planets are good or bad. They're just neutral, right? They absolutely are 100% neutral. What we assign to them as good or bad is our perspective. And so when we look at perhaps the shadow side of this within ourselves, it's, you know, where in our lives individually are we holding on to something that's old? And actually we need to break free of those limitations. Where are we holding ourselves back? And where is it that we need to, you know, bring in a fresh approach? Where is it that we need to, you know, perhaps surround ourselves with different people? And that will vary from person to person, depending on where it sits in your chart and where it's transiting in your chart. But on a collective level, you know, we will see this playing out, is this almost this tug of war between the corporations and people in power and an authority placing limitations, and, you know, the masses wanting to break free. And the other thing that's coming up very soon, actually, so that's sort of a general theme for the rest of the year that's playing out. But another thing that's coming up around it depends on where you're in the world, but around the 4th or the 5th of April is we have a Saturn and Mars conjunction, which basically means that those two planets are going to be joining in the sky. When they join in the sky, that doesn't mean it's particularly good or bad. What it means is that the energies of both of those are amplified. And both of those energies are quite strong at the moment. So they're, you know, the energy is quite potent. And when you have Saturn, which is restrictions and slowing down and power plays and people in authority. And then you've got Mars, which is, it's the warrior, right? It's the god of war. It's the person that just kind of just goes straight in and just charges and is like, yeah, I'll just annihilate everything in the shadow aspect. In the light aspect, Mars is great, right? It's action, it's taking action in a positive way. But in, its shadow state, it's kind of just going for it and not really thinking too much. And so when you're talking about repetitive cycles, and we've seen this before, well, with the planets, that's exactly what they do, right? They're cyclical. They have cycles. And so the last time that this particular conjunction happened, so the conjunction has happened before, but in these particular signs where they are at right now, was in 1989. I think it's 89, could be 88. I think it's 89 when the Berlin Wall fell. And so we were seeing a lot of things on the world stage playing out for a couple of years thereafter. So between sort of 1989 and 1992, I think it was. And so we were seeing a lot of changes on the world stage. And so when you're sort of going, oh, we've seen this before and we've experienced this before, it's very reminiscent of a past time, but this time it will be slightly different. And again, it's just really reassuring that you're kind of seeing that there's almost this calm afterwards, right? So it's like there will be a bit of an explosion. There will be, people going completely crazy. And so this is why it's so important to understand what's going on. It's not so that you can sit there and be fearful and be like, oh no, what do I do? I'm going to go and hide under my duvet. It's just for you to be aware of, so that sometimes these emotions can be triggered in us, and sometimes you're just witness to them in everyone around you. And one of after we had this conversation, the next morning when we woke up, it was so funny because I said to you, I was like,
I know
did you see the news about Will Smith?
Yes.
And you were like, yeah, I can't believe that. It seems, very out of character for him. And, judgment aside, regardless of whatever our opinions are, but that is the exact energy, right, that we're talking about here. It is that energy of, do we sort of just take a step back, and do we just kind of the Saturn energy of, do we just take a step back, really review the situation, let's just pause for a minute, and this is how you should do things and this is how you should react? Or do we go with Mars and screw that and boom, I'm just going to go straight for it and do what I want to do in that moment? And obviously not condoning violence or whatever, but that was an act of like literally physically being violent towards someone, and that's what Mars rules. And again, when I saw it, I was like, this is exactly what we're talking about. And so and also, if you take Saturn, people that are in authority or places of power, Will Smith he's known worldwide, right? So he represents that Saturn kind of authority figure. People will look up to him, and then he's gone and done this thing. And so, yeah, it was so interesting when I saw that play out. And so,
and even him just having that reaction, it's just become massive. It's everywhere over the media, and it's almost like it seems like everyone has to take sides almost. So whether it is like they've become, I'm Saturn side or I'm Mars side, it's like people that say, yes, condoning what he did, and others are like, no, he shouldn't be doing it. And it's like, even that is explosive, because normally people probably wouldn't react or even notice. It wouldn't be that big a news, perhaps, especially in the light of everything else that is going on. Does it need to be in that the world big? Exactly. I don't know. And like you say, we're not, we're not commenting exactly on our opinions of what happened, because that then goes into a whole other which is what we're just highlighting that is,
we're just highlighting exactly. And so that's just one example of how how this energy can play out. And so the whole point of
how it's triggering things, because that's happened there, it's triggered things and emotions directly within us, as in whether we agree with it or don't agree with it, because you may have been treated that way perhaps yourself in the past, and it's almost a reflection of that. So these emotions and things come up for you on how you should behave or not behave, and so on. And so it's just amazing how it's all kind of showing itself. And just after we had that conversation, which is why we felt this urgency had to bring this about, because it comes back to that whole thing that we said in the beginning. If you're aware of what's going to happen or possibly going to happen, and this is just the energies, then you can decide whether you want to participate in it or not, or you can just sort of, you know, sit there with a little grin in your face, kind of not, you know, but just sort of like, that's what's happening. Okay, I don't need to get involved in this. This isn't my thing, or this trigger is coming up for me. I think I need to heal it. It's like, the awareness helps you then, doesn't it?
Oh, so much. Yeah. And I think you're completely spot on. And it was 10:10 when you said that. And that's the key message, isn't it? It's almost just taking taking that information, taking that knowledge. And so like when you and I have had this conversation and we're like, oh, well, this is what's playing out in the astrology right now. And you're picking it up energetically and we're already aware of it. And then this thing breaks out on the news the next day. Actually, both of us, we never once spoke about, was he right or was he wrong to do it? Because it was irrelevant, right? Like we never once have actually gone, oh, I can't believe he did this thing. Or, you know, like it was just completely neutral. In fact, like you said, we were just sitting there kind of going, oh, that's what's playing out right now, right? And so it's just being aware that this energy is playing out. And when you see it around you, just step away, right? Like that's the key message. It's like acknowledge it, witness it. And like what you said, if you're feeling a certain kind of way about it and it's triggering emotions in you, then it's an invitation for you to kind of turn inwards and go, right, where is it? Where is it that I'm feeling this push and pull? Where is that tug of war happening within me that needs resolving? And that's literally all we need to do at this time. And so, you know, people will be fired up around you. You might be fired up. Just be aware of that, right? It's kind of like having, I said this to you, didn't I? It's kind of like, you know, watching the weather and knowing it's going to rain. Just take your brolly out, right? Like you're just preparing yourself, and that's all you need to do differently, is just don't engage, just be aware that there's going to be a bit of a fiery energy. Now, to, you know, it's not all doom and gloom, right? So you also picked up in the energy that it's almost like this is going to be this sense of calm and peace after this big explosion. And
that was really beautiful, really, like, really held lovingly, I would say, like this whole like a big sigh. So like, relief, it's over.
And
peace is to come. Sunny days and joy. Lovely feeling.
And so astrologically, I think I picked up on this straight away. I was like, oh, well, what you're probably picking up on is that Jupiter Neptune conjunction, which is happening on the 12th, I think it is, of April. And this is that really sort of calm, peaceful, serene energy that you were talking about. And it's you know, just very dreamy, very like Neptune's very dreamy. It's the higher octave of Venus, and so with Jupiter's also a benefic planet, and so when the two of them come together and they're in their home signs, so you know they're in a really happy place in the sky basically, and so what will happen is when they're coming together, that Jupiter just amplifies that energy, right? So it's just an explosion again, but in the best possible way, right? So it's just blanketing the earth with all these positive energies to kind of counteract that tension, so sort of alleviate it. That doesn't, you know, just because things are happening on a specific date doesn't mean that the energy just kind of switches off at 12 o'clock, you know, at midnight. So the energies do kind of linger for a little while depending on what the planet is. So you will feel it, you know, a few days before, a few days after. But like I said, it's almost like Jupiter and Neptune are kind of coming in and offsetting some of this energy to bring in some nice positive energy as well. And also, you know, Jupiter is kind of coming to its 12-year cycle. So Jupiter takes 12 years to go all the way around the solar system. And so it started its 12-year cycle in I think it's like 2010, 2011. So it's coming back to its sort of full cycle, if you like. So now's a really good time, again, just to think about what was going on for you in 2010, 2011, and for the last 12 years, right? So that sort of cycle is going to come to a completion. So if there's any lessons, learnings that you can take from that as well, then now's a really good time to look into that and see what's come to completion. See, we were talking about this actually yesterday, weren't we, in so far as when you go back over things, you're like, wow, look how far I've come, right?
Yes, we were.
And Jupiter's completing this cycle, and so it's again, what things are you still holding on to that you could let go of. So what was it that you specifically started around 2010, 2011? What was the energies around that time that's coming into full cycle, that we're ready to kind of complete now? We're done with it. And again, when we think about Saturn and Mars, it's kind of like, what's the old that you need to let go of, and what's the new that we want to try and step into.
Yeah. And I think also saying about, where we're at right now, and we're saying that this energy is kind of building, and this, not necessarily going in the direction that you want to be going in. And if you're like, you feel energy, or more of a clairsentience, or even yourself, when you're like, you're more of a knower, aren't you? You know things, we all take in different, use our different clairsenses to receive our information. But particularly if you're feeling things, and you might be feeling what the collective is feeling at the moment, and there is a lot of fear, and there is that sense of the energy building, like something huge is going to happen. And if you're in that fear mode, then something huge is going to happen, you might be feeling isn't going to be very good. And so that is when you can sort of feel this whole, almost that sludgy feeling perhaps that you were feeling on Monday, where you were just like, we'd come on to do the podcast then, weren't we? We're like, let's do this. And there was almost this feeling of, wasn't it? It was like and whether part of that as well is that, it's very hard when you're connecting with energy not to then sometimes allow it to come into us, or to feel that energy collectively of what's going on. So another way that we kind of almost turned it on its head, didn't we? Because there is all this energy that's building, and it's big energy. We were like, right, that's enough of that, kind of like, not wallowing, but, just like, how can we work with this? And we were like, I know, we're just going to get on, and we're going to do our course, and we're going to be accountability buddies. And we just kind of got on with it, didn't we? And both of us did like our first couple of modules, wrote out exactly what our courses were about, and we just did it, and we're like, done. So you can use that kind of energy like that as well to grow your and amplify what it is that you're doing, and make it, really big, and crack on with things. So it's either you can make that decision, can't you, which way you're going with it. So, and then hopefully when the calm comes, you can rest when you've been pushing yourself, or so when that
and just as you were saying that, actually, like, again, just relating it back to this transit of Saturn and Mars, Saturn is very much about being structured and organized and methodical, and and Mars, like I said, in its highest sort of expression, is taking aligned action, right? It's taking action, but in an aligned fashion. And so that's what we've been doing, is we've been getting organized, we've been kind of like creating this structure and getting things done, and in the traditional sense, and then taking aligned action off the back of that. So this energy that's happening on the world stage, because you're talking about a lot of people at this point, right? And so you can't contain that, you can't control that. The only thing that you can control is you at an individual level. And so if we could do that, we would kind of encourage everyone to use the highest expressions of energy, but that's not always possible. And the only thing we can control, like I said, is our own way of engaging with it. And actually, without really we didn't really consciously make too much of a decision.
No, we didn't.
Based
it's
on
just
astrology,
when you've been listening to you talk right now, this is what's kind of come in, and I'm thinking, hang on, we did that. So maybe this is what other people could do if they want to as well, rather than going in complete hermit mode, and which is what we feel like we want to do, that getting under the duvet and not getting involved with all this. You can feel it there, just kind of turning it on its head and saying, right, I'm going to use this energy for, you know, for me. And it's not being selfish. It's kind of exactly like you say, you know, healing yourself or working on yourself and your own self-development is, and personal growth, all of that is really the highest service we can give, isn't it? And you know, in a sense, we're all in that place where we're, you know, working for the highest good of ourselves, which is also in effect the highest good for everyone else too. If we're coming from a place of service, that is, and it isn't a selfish thing. And that in a sense will also is part of healing the earth. And you know, it's just always hard to kind of explain that, how it works on a bigger scale. Your words might come out better than mine. I don't know, but I know you've explained it before as well, and it sounds really good.
I think completely spot on. You know, that for me is, you know, when you're doing that self work and the inner work, right? And I think this is one of the things we wanted to talk about in our glossary is what's the work, right? What's the work? So what does it actually mean? And so we won't cover it right now, but when you are doing the work on yourself, so suffice to say, you know, it's turning the lens inwards, it's turning the mirror on yourself and going, right, okay, what parts of me do I need to heal? What parts of me do I need to work on? When you're doing that work, it is quite literally the highest level of service that you can offer, right? So a lot of people think that their purpose in life or their mission in life is to, you know, do a thing out there in the world. And for some people that is their mission, but a soul's mission really is to evolve. You know, that's what you signed up for. You came back so that you can evolve, spiritually evolve, and grow your soul in a human experience form, and to serve, right? But the greatest level of service is quite literally working on yourself, because the only thing that you can do is work on yourself. The only thing that you have any amount of control on is yourself, right? So you can support other people, you can facilitate that growth for other people if that's, you know, if that's your level of service that you want to offer. But if you're just working on yourself, gosh, if everybody did that, everybody just moved the needle just ever so slightly, the vibration on this earth would be completely different, right? Like the frequency would be completely different. And so we can't control what everyone else is doing. We can only control what we're doing. And so working on ourselves in turn is the greatest level of service that we can offer to humanity. And it seems,
and it's like having
really
the awareness.
funny,
I always say, like, it's like you take a step back, isn't it? You become the observer to what's going on in your life. And it's almost like a split second pause sometimes as to, you know, not, you see the trigger, you feel that emotion welling up inside you, and before you react, isn't it, you kind of come back to, well, why am I reacting like that? And then you, like you say, you begin to do the inner work, but we'll cover that hopefully on another day. But it's just this, that awareness, being the observer, and then if you're reacting less to things and you're calmer, and if, like you say, everyone was doing the work, we'd all be a little calmer, perhaps, and, you know, which would help in the sense of things. It's because, you know, maybe certain leaders are not calm and want, well, that's probably power as well. There's a lot of power in that, and other issues as well, of course, but it's still a sense of, pushing forward for things. I've lost my train of thought, sorry.
Yeah, no, and it is, right? Like, so we can only work with the energy as it is. So it's almost like you're taking like a mean reading of everyone on Earth, right? Like, so everyone's at different levels and layers, and there's no layer that's good or bad, right? But we just need to, by working on ourselves, we just need to bring that average up. We just need to be the ones that are working on ourselves and you know, support, like getting yourself into a tribe that is supportive of that. I think that's another thing that's really key from the work that we've been doing together, is when you're working together with other people who are like-minded, you don't then start having these fears of, am I going crazy? Is this right? You know, are people going to think I'm weird? Are people going to think, what the hell's happened to that person? You know, because you create this identity in this 3D world on what is normal and what is traditional success, and, you know, what you should be doing, air quotes for all of the people that are just listening to this on audio. But, you know, it is this idea of how do we step into this? You know, we're feeling this kind of way, we're seeing, sensing, perceiving all these new things, but how do we navigate through that? And so the best way to do it is just to find your tribe, right? Like, come and join us. We're going to be starting to do retreats as well, which I'm really excited about. But the whole purpose of that is to bring people together, because what we've found to be true is when you get together with other like-minded people and you create this container, it's quite literally creating this vortex of energy, and so much more information comes through. Your growth is just accelerated so much faster. It's literally collapsing timelines, right? Because what would take you, you know, maybe months or years to do by yourself, you can literally like spend an afternoon with the right person, and it's like, oh, boom, 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 like everything's firing off, everything's happening.
Yeah,
so yeah,
on an energetic kind of way when we come together, isn't it? We've got these like almost keys and codes that we've got to share with one another, and that's what's happening when you come together. The same kind of thing happens when you're working in circle or in ceremony, which has gone on for, you know, thousands of years, and that's how it all started. And that's people coming together, connecting, and you know, those our soul and our higher self knows exactly what we need from each other, and that's the way that we connect. And so by coming together, that's exactly what you receive, isn't it? All those right bits of information that you need to accelerate. And I love the way you say, like, you know, collapsing the timelines and so on, because yeah, you just then evolve that much faster, don't you? So yeah, I can't wait for us to start doing some retreats. We're hoping to do a couple this year, aren't we? But we'll give perhaps pop the dates in. We could do in the links or something. We could put something in.
And I think, yeah, whoever's up for just having more of these kind of conversations and is intrigued to know, I mean, we've got so many stories, gosh, we could do like 100 podcasts, like non-stop. But yeah, I think it's, you know, rather than it being about us, we just want to be able to share our experience. Back as if nothing happened. Yeah, we're really looking forward to doing these retreats and bringing bringing people together who are like-minded, who want to be collapsing timelines and growing and accelerating and doing their own inner work, right? That's what it's all about. And yeah, just love to know where you're at on your journey, and we'd love to share more about our journey as well over time. So yeah, it's been really exciting to do this first podcast, and yeah, here's to many more.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just going to say to sort of bear with us, because as it is our first, but we just wanted to get it out there, didn't we? You know, I've got a little puppy in the background who had a little bit of a barking session when the postman arrived and so on. We've had a couple of interruptions, but we'll try and edit and smash together somehow. It's all new to us, isn't it? But we're prepared to do it, because we've kind of got this, like you say, there was this urgency to just get this out and get it birthed almost, wasn't it? And whether that was just when we went to Stonehenge together, didn't we, for the spring equinox, and really could feel the energies. And yeah, so it's almost like we're being shown that this is the way, so we've just got to kind of get on with it and do it, and hopefully, you know, we'll improve and we'll get better with it all.
Sure, we absolutely will. Yeah, but it's been really lovely doing this first one, and yeah, looking forward to the next one now.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Okay.